Perhaps you're just looking for new characters to play, or maybe you're struggling a little bit in Honkai Star Rail and you want to have a magnifying glass zooming you in on where exactly you can focus first to get more Stellar Jades and also progress further in the Memory of Chaos. Now this video I'm going to be talking about 8 different categories, not characters of course, I'll give you more options as well. But the first category I think most of us already know, the banner characters definitely are going to be useful in version 1.1, both Silver Wolf as well as LyouRika. LyouRika, no need to mention, he's a healer, so a lot of us only currently have like one healer, Natasha, if we don't have Bailu. And if you don't have Jett, likely your other half is going to struggle. Very strong character for your second team. And debuffing Silver Wolf, tremendous amounts of value. Now debuffers are much better off, especially with also the enemy resistances being lowered in version 1.1 and beyond as well. Silver Wolf and LyouRika definitely strong characters. I have already other guides, I won't delve too much on them. We probably already know that they are going to be good before we even look at this video. And out of all of the characters in 1.1 Honkai Star Rail, I think the biggest winner out of all of them will have to be Pella. Pella not only saw the benefits, for example, in the Memory of Chaos buffs, where now the number of debuff the enemy has does less damage, or also eventually increase in terms of defense shredding. With a new defense shredder in the game like Silver Wolf, she also saw buffs because defense shredding stacks on top of each other and is very strong, and your damage will then become multiplicative in a sense. So strong double combo of huge amounts of defense breaking, a very good unit to have. And on top of that, Freeze also got a slight buff, especially with enemy resistances also being lowered in 1.1. I think if you're looking for a character to play, she's probably one character that you probably should put at the highest priority to take up and build as well. She also strips enemies buffs, which makes her very good at dealing with a lot of the monsters currently in the Memory of Chaos with the regenerative ability and self-buffing ability. I highly recommend you take her up if you haven't, and if you don't have her, I wish you good luck in your pulls as well. Hope you get her soon. She's a very strong unit. Next characters that are also in the same vein, very beneficial. Sampo is in the June shop now, you can consider getting him if you are interested. I have another video above where I talk about Sampo as well as Kafka. For people who want to like play Kafka, whether you need Sampo, I talk about it there. If you're interested, and specifically for Kafka, do take a look at it there. But by and large, Nihility characters also benefit quite a lot, because if you put debuffs on an enemy, they do less damage or they take more damage depending on the phase of the Memory of Chaos you are in when you're watching this video. They also can use the Light Cone Resolution Shines as Pearls of Sweat, the Lucas Light Cone, which gives defense break on the enemy. That's considered as an additional debuff on the enemy as well. So tons of value now in version 1.1. If you haven't built these two units yet, I think it's also a good time to consider if you already maybe have Pella built and perhaps you don't have Silver Wolf yet as well. So that's the third category that I want to talk about. In the fourth category right here would be your characters like Mark 7 as well as Natasha. Natasha, probably a lot of us already have built, but she's also in this list of very useful units in 1.1 with the changes in the meta, because the Kafka enemy boss is in the meta, and a lot of monsters that apply debuffs on our characters are also now shifting into the meta in terms of the Memory of Chaos changes. Debuffer or cleansers rather, like Mark 7, like Natasha, like LyouRika, and etc. all are very strong in the current meta because of the ability to cleanse debuffs, and also they also provide sustain as their usual benefit as per 1.0 already, but debuffing or debuff cleansing is very useful in 1.1. And in the fifth category we have here, I put here both ice characters. Slightly smaller box is Jett. I think that a little bit larger benefit will be Yenting. Yenting benefits from freeze resistances being lowered, making him much better. And by and large, a lot of ice characters saw this benefit because freeze is now so strong. Like a lot of the enemies currently in the abyss can be frozen, or the Memory of Chaos can be frozen rather. And resistance being lowered means that they don't have to build as much effect hit rate in their kit. For example, Yenting doesn't want to build effect hit rate at all, which makes him much better stacking, for example, just into crit rate, crit damage as well as attack, and it does tons of damage while also having a higher chance to proc his freeze too. Jett, I put him in slightly smaller boxes. He was already very strong in 1.0 and is also even more stronger now with the buffs to freeze and effect resistances of enemies being lowered. I think these two characters will see ton of value, especially in so far in the earlier floors of the Memory of Chaos. We are seeing that ice is very strong. Possibly, in my opinion, now the strongest element in the game, other than perhaps maybe for Imaginary or Quantum, for example, with the amount of delay that they do on the enemy target. I think Freeze is possibly like on the top with them. Then that's category number 5. In category number 6, on the same line is like characters that are that have debuff oriented in them. These characters did slightly better in 1.1 with the enemy resistances reduction. Servile does shock, Danheng does slow. These two characters here, they'll burn as well. So they definitely benefited a little bit in 1.1, saw some buffs, and they are much more useful going into version 1.1 as well. Why I say that they are like meta and must build, I think that a lot of these other characters here will probably be much better off building first before you get to, like, for example, Hook and Himiko, unless you're specifically running like a fire team. So that's my thoughts for now, but let's move on first with like the next category, which is the 7th box that I want to talk about, will be of course your Harmony characters. Right here, I think the Harmony characters are still in a very good place and useful units to have in version 1.1, especially in particular Yukong, who's going to be coming out in a bit. I've already done some guide videos on the channel on team compositions for her, and more to come as well. But basically, I think Imaginary is still very strong. A lot of the enemies now in version 1.1, especially in the second half, are very weak to Imaginary. Having a good one, especially a 4-star or a free-to-play one eventually, will be very, very strong for our roster too. I think it's a good character to build. Other than that, the rest of them are strong. The only like caveat or only gripe that I have right now is Nihility characters are much stronger in version 1.1 than they were in 1.0. So Harmony characters definitely do have a bit of competition. Of course, unless you're willing to maybe take out your secondary DPS, maybe you have like a hyper carry in the first slot, and your second slot is like usually an AoE DPS. If you don't mind taking the AoE DPS out and replacing them, for example, with like a Nihility character, then perhaps you can still run a 3rd slot Harmony as well. And those are just like some of my thoughts that I'm just saying out loud. And last but not least, in the 8th slot, I think this one is kind of obvious as well, similar to the first box. If you have these characters not built yet, I highly recommend you build them. They are still very strong, healers are still very relevant, and defensive units are also still very relevant to have in 1.1, especially when our accounts are not like fully max geared, all our characters like level 80 yet. Those are some things to consider as well. And just a really nice quick summary right at the end here for some of us who maybe skipped a few parts towards the end and you want to just see a quick overview. Basically, these two characters are the bias right now because they're the banner characters. Hoyoverse wants to sell them. Pella likely will be the top pick, or my top pick in version 1.1, a must build for many people. Nihility unit is very strong. Cleansers are also much better now with the changes in the enemy lineup, with a lot more debuffers, debuffing enemies in the Memory of Chaos. Freezers, very strong. The effect rests the nerfs on the enemy units means freezers that don't really care too much about effect hit rate now are much better too. Your debuff DPSs are also much more useful because they debuff more effectively while not sacrificing too much on damage. I just had to leave a caveat here. Does not mean that they are meta right now. It just means they're slightly better in 1.1 than 1.0. Some people just like to take what I say and just take a snapshot and post it out of context. I just want to just make sure that that's not the case. And last but not least, of course, your buffers and sustain characters are still very strong in 1.1. If you haven't built them, you definitely do want to get these characters up. And of course, if you're interested in any of the build guides of those characters that we mentioned in the video, I already have built guide videos on the channel for them as well, and also team composition videos. If you like such content and you want to see more of such content in future, do like and subscribe for more of such future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.